Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sabahul khair habibi wa habibti. Sabahul nur, sabahul ful, sabahul words. Kif halukum? Alhamdulillah khair. Ayyamil an. Al-an yaumul isnin August 24, 2020. I am Mualimah Tuti Wardani Bako SPD. Now our subject is biology. I will tell you about the indicator that you must reach in this subject now. The first, be able to mention the classification purpose of living things. The second, be able to mention the taxon level from the highest to the lowest. The third, be able to explain and write the rules for naming of living things based on binomial nomenclature. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, before we start our topic today, Mualimah will give you the glossaries. The first, binomial nomenclature, sistem nama ganda. The second, similarities and differences, persamaan dan perbedaan. The third, monetary lizard, biawak. The fourth, genetics, marmut. The fifth, dove, merpati. Okay, Habibi wa Habibti, yallah bina nabda'un nasyat. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, now our topic is about classifications of living things. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, before we start, last week we have studied about the characteristic of living things. Okay, do you still remember what is the characteristic of living things? Okay, the characteristic of living things are moving, breathing, need food, excretion, growing and developing, sensitive to stimuli, and able to adaptation. Okay, I hope you still remember what is our topic last week. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, do you know how many types of living things are on this earth? Okay, now on earth, millions of species has been identified. The number of species has identified increased because research to find out the very many kinds of living things, scientists do a classification. And now, how do the scientists classify the living things? The classification of living things is based on similarities and differences in characteristics. Living things that have similarities are included in one group. In the classification of living things, firstly, classifications means a systematic way of studying living things by taking into the similarities and differences in their visible characteristic. In its development, the basic use in classifying living things is more complex, a part of being based on the similarities or differences in anatomy and behavior. Now, the classification of living things studied in the branch of biology is called taxonomy. And then now, Habibi wa Habibti, what is the purpose of classification? Naam, the classification purpose to the first, make it easier to study living things. The second, knowing the benefits of each type of living things for humans. The third, knowing the interdependence between one living things and another. And then the last, knowing the relationship between various types of living things. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, the first people to systematically classify living things is Aristoteles. Aristoteles divided living things into plants, animals, and human. Living things that are included in the Plants are those that have a vegetative, it's controlling the activities of eating and reproduction. And then, living things that are included in the animal are living things that besides having a vegetative, also have an animal that regulates movement. And then, living things that are included in the human are living things that besides having a vegetative and an animal also have a rational that regulates the intellectual. So, Habibi Habibti, from his classification, Aristotle clearly said that humans are the highest level of living things. Okay, the simple classification of living things can be done simply based on the type of food, the similarity of their habitat or the environment in which they live, or their benefits. Okay, based on the type of food, it can be grouped into carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. Carnivores are like tigers, lion, and wolves that they eat meat, yes. And then herbivores are plant-eating animals like goats and giraffe. And then omnivores are animals that eat meat and plants. For example, chicken and rats. And then, based on their habitat, plants can be divided into sauropods, hydropods, and hygropods. Sauropods are plants that live in very dry environments. For example, cacti, yes, or cactus, yes. And then hydropods are plants that live in an aquatic environment. For example, lotus and water hyacinths. And then hygropods are plants that live in humid environment. For example, moss and ferns. Okay, next, based on their benefits, plants can be divided into groups of clothing, food, and medical plants. Although Aristotle was the first to classify living things, the one who called the father of taxonomy is Carolus Linnaeus. The axis of Carolus Linnaeus compared to scientists before is he paid attention to the level of groups of living things, and then we call taxon. Alright, Habibi Habibti, the taxon level from the highest to the lowest is, you can look at from the table. Okay, taxon for plants, you can look kingdom, divisi, class, ordo, family, genus, and species. If taxon in animal, kingdom, phylum, class, ordo, family, genus, and species. Each kingdom is divided into divisions for plants and phylum for animals. Each division or phylum is divided into several classes. Each class is divided into several ordo. Each ordo is divided into several family, and each family is divided into several or many genus. Each genus divided again into species. In the some classification of living things need a level under a certain taxon using additional sub like subphylum and subordo. Another important service of Carolus Linnaeus was the discovery of a system of naming living things, and we known as the binomial nomenclature or multiple nomenclature. Before the introduction of the binomial nomenclature, there was no uniformity of the names of any particular living things in the world. For example, pisang. You know pisang? Yes, we know in Indonesia the name is pisang. The same plant is gedang in Central Java and West Java, but in Bali they call it is bui. Yes, and then in England, it is called banana. Right? The non-uniformity of the names when written in scientific reports is of course make confusing to scientists. Okay, Habibi wa Habibti, the rules for naming living things according to binomial nomenclature. The first, type name and family name. The first, the name of the living things using the Latin word. Okay. The second, the name of a living thing consists of two single words. The first word is the name of the genus. The second word indicates the species. Okay. The third, the first word starts with uppercase or capital letter. The second word starts with lowercase or small letter. The writing of species names and genus names must be distinguished from other words in the sentence. It is written in italic or underline each word. Example of the writing, you can look at Habibi wa Habibti. Example, Solanum lycopersicum or tomato. Yes, do you know tomato? The Latin in biology, we call Solanum lycopersicum. Okay, look at how to write down. Okay, the first can be with the first capital letter S, yes, S, and then L for the second word using small letters. Or you can make by italic or underline each word. Okay, and then this is Varanus salvator or monitor lizard. You can look at V by capital letter but S with small letter, and then can be with italic or with underline. Okay, next, number 2, based on the name of the family. For plants, the name of the family is generally the genus plus AC or A. Yes. And then for animals, the name of the family is generally the genus plus Idae. Yes. Okay, example of writing Solanum lycopersicum or tomato just now, including the Solanaceae family, or Varanus salvator or monitor lizard include the Varanidae family. Okay. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, the classification of a type of living thing can be done through the following stage. The first, characteristic of organism. This first stage to find similarities and differences between organisms. At this stage, the introduction of characteristic, for example, morphology, anatomy, physiology, and how to reproduction. And then the second, by grouping based on the observed characteristics. The second stage is to classify living things based on the similarity of characteristics that have been observed in the first stage. For example, doves are included in one group with chickens because they have several similarities. The similarities include warm blood. The heart consists of 4 rooms, 2 serambi and 2 bilik. Okay, and then the skin is covered with fur and reproduced by ovipar or laying eggs. And then the third, giving names. This stage is very important classification. The systems used in naming names is a binomial nomenclature system. After each living thing and its group were given a name, then do a classification. Okay, example of animal and plants classifications can be seen in this table. Okay, in a simple classification, we haven't know yet the kinship relationship of one living being to another. For this reason, the classification of the phylogenetic system was developed again. This classification is arranged based on the close kinship relationship between one group of living things and another group of living things, and at the same time reflects the development of living things. This classification system developed after Charles Darwin put forward his theory of evolution. The classification of the phylogenetic system is also arranged based on the equation of phenotype or characteristics that are visible from the outside, and then physiology or function of the body's organ, and then observable behavior and heredity. Okay, Habibi Habibti, look at the example of phylogenetic classification. Okay, from the table above, it can be seen that the kinship relationship between cats and dogs is closer than kinship relationship between cats and guinea pigs. Dogs and cats belong to one suborder, then guinea pigs and cats are one class. So the similarities between dogs and cats are more than between guinea pigs and cats. Alright, Habibi wa Habibti, that's all our material for today. Okay, next time we will meet anymore with another material. Okay, Habibi wa Habibti, keep spirit and keep study hard. Shukron for your attention. Ila liqa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.